waiting for the signal. You can see the legs of a white suited marshal standing in front. He's waiting for all clear through his radio set, and then the supercars will come up the hill. When I say supercars, I think we almost need to have a new term. We had supercars, but we seem to have moved to another level beyond what was the accepted and albeit fleeting norm a few years ago. The marshal signals him away and that power is unleashed.
This is a really, really quite a big deal, this car. It's got a 2.88 litre flat plane crank, V8 twin turbo, it's hybrid as well. That engine is built by Zinger, it's their own engine. It goes to 11,000 RPM. 11,000.
And again, just saying they're building their own engine for a relatively new manufacturer. You know, people used to outsource. The engine can come from someone else. They can do the development, but that is remarkable. And it makes actually really rather nice sound as it goes past the commentary box at Malcolm.
Depending on the spec, you've got between 1,250 horsepower and 1,350 horsepower. And it is 2 seats, but the driver sits in front and the passenger. One of our colleagues the other day, he sat behind the driver, had to go around the road circuit. It was absolutely terrifying, but really enjoyed it, and it's a real privilege to see this. It's really, really impressive and incredible technology. The 3D printing, when you get underneath the bodywork, is fantastic.
So if 3D printing and that sort of performance, 1,250 horsepower appeals, don't look it up under Z. There's a C in front of it. CZINGER. So the Zinger 21C. Ferrari land, there's an awful lot of new Ferrari machinery, and this one, it's blue and yellow. What can you tell us about it?
Ferrari FXXK Evo. This is the third of the XX cars. First we had the FXX, which was based on the Ferrari Enzo. We had the 599XX and the Evo version of that as well. This is based on the LaFerrari, and it's got hybrid powertrain. It's more than 1,000 horsepower. It's just an absolute monster, and it's basically, you buy one of these, Ferrari keep it, they look after it for you, they take it to tracks that you want to learn, you want to experience, and you just get better and better, improve your lap times, use data to get better, their pro drivers come along, you just learn in a car with a huge V12 that absolutely screams.
It is, and the FFX owners, they get an awful lot of track time, as you say, that expert advice, but to my eye, that is the prettiest of the FFXs so far. I wasn't a great fan of the Enzo one, but two other Ferraris tucking in behind, and again, we talked about them earlier in the day. Quite a lot of the design, particularly the second of the first of the two yellow cars, it does echo back, there are echoes the 1960s.
Yeah, the SP3, that is a one-off V12 naturally aspirated, more than 800 horsepower. And I believe that's the SP2 Monza. So again, kind of how we saw the Aston Martin V12 Vantage Speedster this morning. It's a drop top V12, no windscreen, rear wheel drive, big power. To drive one quickly, you've got to be quite alert, quite awake.
Well, Pat Blakely at the wheel, he's certainly awake. He's been racing for a very long time, and actually a Ferrari display driver for a long time too. So a safe pair of hands. Ferrari Monza SP2, and we really appreciate the variety of these different cars. They're super dynamic, but what I love, they make different sounds and different shapes. If it all went the same way because the computer said so, it wouldn't be such an exciting place to be. So through the finish line goes the SP2 Monza, flashing through those hay bales. When you're in one of these cars, you can't see over the top of the hay bales. It really does feel like a tunnel up there at the top of the hill. Bit of corner cutting down the bottom of the hill. That's about the only place you can get away with it. The further up the course you get, the more it seems to narrow, but this red Ferrari running just in front of the house and approaching Moulcombe. Lights on, it's a little bit of a flash, getting the car balanced through the right-hander and up the hill it goes. But again, this morning it was rather greasy because there'd been a little bit of rain followed by a little bit more. They had windscreen wipers on, but now the drivers know the hill better and the conditions are far better. Past the famous flint wall, and then almost everywhere, this is one of the few parts of the track, there's actually a little bit of grass on either side, then back between the bales, between the trees, and the hill climb course completed. But of course, while that is happening further down the hill, we have other Ferraris. And here's the Roma.
Yes, probably this was the car that kind of Ferrari thought, you know what, we're going to take away a lot of the more visible aerodynamic devices. So they've got a low rear wing that comes up, I think, above about 70 miles an hour. So most of the time, you know, there's very clever aero work going on there, but it's always taken away.
I think it's extremely elegant, and I think in that dark grey, it's a charcoal grey, it's a really, really good looking car. And I said earlier, you know, you sort of think of a high performance car, but ask yourself how much of that high performance you're going to use all the time. I think better to have something a little bit softer sprung and certainly less in your face. Now, the Radford Lotus Type 62-2, catchy name, but Eric Quick on board.
Yeah, so this uses the same V6 that Lotus was using. It uses it now in the Emira, but also used in the MCH, but kind of pumped up really, so you can get them at 500 horsepower, 600 horsepower, depending on the spec. But this is the project, of course, the Jensen button's been behind, and it's just fantastic to see it running. We've seen it at Goodwood quite a few times, but it's always been static, so to see it on the hill is really, really good fun.
Very much so, and those unusual rear flip-ups again, that's almost going back to the late 1960s when that was only in 68 that aerodynamic aerofoils and things were put onto Formula 1 cars. They were small and immediately became huge, and suddenly those cars started to have those little flip-ups ahead of the rear wheel, just to do that thing called downforce. What can we get? So just to re-emphasise, Jensen Button involved with the Radford Lotus with Anstanstead, isn't it? They've worked together on this project. So through the finish line that goes. But again, just it looks different to others. And then Porsche, of course, we have many indications of that. And this one was very good this morning. In fact, had a massive twitch when the track was, the hill drive was a little bit greasy, then a little bit more. But the handling of that car was so good that it was hauled back into line quite easily. Or maybe that was just a very good driving.
This is the Kalmar Automotive 797. This is from Denmark. This is the project that Tom Christensen, the 9-time Le Mans winner, has been involved with.
Well, if it's good enough for Tom, I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's good enough for you, because what Tom doesn't know about racing cars isn't worth looking at. And after all the success as Audi, it sort of makes me smile a little bit that he's involved with the Porsche project. He's looked at the base and built it up from there. Now, this is a little less subtle, a little more in-your-face performance. It's red, it's black, and it's got an enormous, absolutely huge rear wing that appears to angle through the corners.
Yeah, this is the Zenvo TSRS. So basically, when you're going through a corner, the rear wing will move to provide you enough support on whichever corner the car needs. Basically, just improve downforce, improve grip, get you through the corner faster than you would if the rear wing was just staying still. It's absolutely baffling to watch.
It really is. I mean, if I see that on a racing circuit, I think they've hit something, it's not going to be good, and the McLaren Artura are going to be going off at Moulton Corner. But yes, I'll need to look at that up more runs with it angling forward to help with the braking, a bit like the air brakes they had on the Mercedes back at Le Mans in the mid-1950s. It seems as though someone's forgotten to put a few bolts in there, but obviously all worked out. I spoke to Alberto last year, and it all makes perfect sense until you see it in the flesh.
Maserati MC20, we saw this make his world debut last year. It's the return to supercars really for Maserati. The last mid-engine supercar was MC12 back in, I think, 2005, 2006, that kind of era. So quite a long time ago now. This is mid-engine, turbocharged, V6 engine, more than 600 horsepower.
I like it a lot, because the MC12 was a fabulous racing car. Several championships, I think 3 years running, really successful in FOS racing. But this very much a road version, but it's so lovely. Something I was saying earlier, if you go up next to a car, you see it in the pictures, it looks so. You go up and you just notice those little details. And having seen how that was driven up the hill, it also looks supremely sorted. So that's the MC20 Maserati across the finish line. And still the cars come thick and fast. This is a big batch of supercars. The Michelin Supercar run has grown and grown and grown, and really is a truly astonishing assembly of cars. And it's the shop window. It's the dynamic shop window, and we're very much appreciative of that. Well, it's the 930 from Lanzante Limited brought that, the 930 tag. So it's an echo of the racing Porsches from the day, but turbocharged. Of course, Porsche staunchly had their 911s with turbos on board. It looked normal. You press the throttle, it certainly wasn't normal. They were absolutely epic in the late 70s, early 80s, but probably early 80s as turbo technology really started to come in. But great to see that here.
And to get the most out of it, you've really got to be awake. It's an intense driving experience, lots of power, not much weight, engine out over the back. Of course, Lanzante will do everything to possibly can to make it as drivable as possible, as fun as possible, but it's a very serious bit of kit.
It really is. In fact, there's nothing that's a flippant bit of kit here. He says as the most glorious McLaren goes past the window and up the hill. That was a P1 from McLaren Automotive. Aston Martin, big presence here at the Festival of Speed. They've always been staunch supporters. Which is this one in that glorious dark green?
This is the F1 edition. This is the Roadster. Twin turbo, V8 engine from Mercedes AMG, with the power of the regular Advantage poster. Got that rear wing, of course, on the back. You've got little F1 edition badges on the side, just behind the front wheel arches. A bit more carbon fibre, a bit more money, but a bit more exclusivity.
And one very, very lucky passenger indeed, going where the hill climb, of course, becomes a hill climb, really. It starts going up the hill. Nice controlled precision there, but it needs to be quick because just behind it, and that's David Good, great racing driver, driving that on board. He's been a pro racer, started in Formula Ford in the mid-1980s. Top bloke, driving really well, but following it up the hill is the Aston Martin Valkyrie. Anybody on the hill will be able to hear it when the throttle is open, because it's probably one of the loudest cars there. But when you do the numbers on an Aston Martin Valkyrie, they suddenly get quite large, don't they?
Yeah, Cosworth developed engine. The project was co-led by Adrian Newey from Red Bull. It's an absolute monster. It's amazing to think that a car with so much power, such a high revving V12 is entirely road legal.
I know, you have to pinch and read it several times. I like on the rear of this V12 Vantage, the red one that's just get away, it said never leave quietly, I think it said on the rear wing. I'm going to take a look at the rear window. That's the top of the window, can't quite see. But ironically, it actually did leave the line quite quietly.
That is the slogan for this car, never leave quietly, because again, we're getting into that time where these kind of cars will stop being produced. You can't build huge power V12 engines forever. So this is a celebration of the V12. It's a limited run car. I believe it's under 4 cars. And yeah, it's the V12 engine shoved in their smallest car. Bit of a handful.
No, but that's the sort of technology that's appealed ever since time began. But certainly once we got to the 60s and people saying, actually, we'll have a really complicated engine where we can get an engine from Ford or Chevrolet in the States and put it in whatever beautiful body you've made, and it will provide the noise and the grunt and the fun. But I think that looks absolutely exquisite, the V12 Vantage.
And it's interesting as well how Aston Martin have chosen, with the previous generation V12 Vantage, it started off as, you know, essentially just a Vantage with a V12 engine in it, but they ramped it up, whereas that they've gone straight in the deep end. It's top spec.
Now, the AMG GT Track Series is on the hill, but another Mercedes is stopped up ahead and it raises the rear wing. This is the super duper charger from Mercedes, and this is the AMG-One. It's special plus special.
So what it's just done there, it's gone from highway mode, which is just when you're cruising along, and now it's gone into track mode. So the front drops by 37mm, the rear drops by 30mm. Mercedes quotes you get 5 times more downforce with everything. All these little louvers opening, the rear wing up in it as high as it will possibly go.
5 times?
Yes.
Just doing that. I mean, it's a huge wing and it's angled up. That's astonishing.
But there's more aerodynamic work than you can just see by looking at it here. There's stuff going on under the floor, there's stuff going on behind the wheel arches. All in the effort to increase downforce, but more than 1,000 horsepower, 1,063 horsepower, 11,000 RPM. The engine from a Mercedes Formula 1 car, 1.6 litre turbocharged V6.
I mean, we've always banged the drum and taken the mantra racing improves 3, but just realising, just when you're touching on those elements, not just the engine coming across, but all the understanding of aerodynamics and the tricks that try and find the downforce, which has been ever since wings started appearing on road cars as well as race cars, the thing to have.
That, everyone, is the Rimac Nevera, and whoever is driving that is having the absolute time of their lives. Oversteer through Molecombe is something that only very brave people have done.
Well, it's Yvonne Mather at the wheel, and I can't see it. Yes, there's a passenger in there as well. They might have gone beyond their comfort zone at that point, but as the passenger, there's nothing you can do. But Yvonne producing a remarkable drive in that Rimac. They always do things slightly differently, but that was noise. Here's a replay, I think. Yes, coming up a little bit sideways, even before it's got to the house, weaving around, maybe. But, well, actually, I think the game here...
He's backing it in.
Yvonne putting on astonishing. That was at the bottom part of the course. They came past us in the Rimac at Molecombe and then hung the tail out as well. Well, that's one for the fans, and might have spilt a few cups of tea in the hospitality areas. But here comes the second slide from Yvonne Mather, and that is there's just a remarkably little adjustment to the wheel. The tail is out. That is all on the throttle. That's fabulous.
It shows just how clever the calibration wheel that is, because to slide an electric car out with thousands of horsepower takes a lot of skill, but also a lot of knowledge and commitment.
So So Jack Bartholomew at the wheel. Oh, he's a racer of a Aventador LP 784 Ultime, the end of the Aventador run. A lot of letters, and in fact now has to back off because it's been so fast it's caught the previous car 3/4 of the way up the course. Luckily the previous car actually maybe just slowed down a little bit, but Jack's going to wind it up again. But next time he'll want a full run, clearly enjoying that very much indeed. And that was right at the end of the course. There's the finish, top of the hill climb, and in fact the car in front, it's not just any car, it's a one-off car. It's the Aston Martin Bulldog from more than 40 years ago. And do take a look at that if you can in the paddock. It is remarkable. It'd be fairly remarkable if it was produced 2 years ago, not just 40.
There were some collective gasps then as the Ultimate came up behind the SDO. Then that was close. That was would have been spicy from the inside.
It certainly would. So still more cars down, assembling at the bottom of the course to come up this hill climb in the Michelin Supercar run. We have first glance cars as well that will be on the hill too, and they say what it does on the tin. It's your first glance. It's a world's first glance. We've already had cars unveiled. Today we had the world launch, the global launch of the Ford Pro Electric Super Van, something dear to my heart because I remember the original one, a Ford Transit van, lowered slightly with the 4.1 engine. Tick, tick, let's go for it. And Ford, I'm delighted to say this is their fourth iteration, but obviously the first one with 4 electric motors on board.
Rolls-Royce Ghost Black Badge. Black Badge series is essentially where you get lots of black trim all over the place. This is as close to a driver's Rolls-Royce as you'll get. They try and make it a little bit more driver focused. Just also notice the Spirit of Ecstasy on the bonnet there. That is black, the black grille. Bit of a difference from the regular Rolls-Royce Ghost that was launched just over 2 years ago now.
Well, great to see that performance can come from a Rolls-Royce, because certainly the performance coming. Yes, that's not your standard Rolls-Royce road car, is it? Because you can see the suspension is very, very sweet indeed on that.
Well, that's the thing. Also, he'll be driving up there, even though he's hustling. He'll be very relaxed. It will be very serene. He might have the radio on, just relaxing.
High-speed waffling. I was looking at one going in a hill climb, not one of these, but it was a Bentley special from 1951, and it had all that V8 horsepower, but it just rumbled. It sort of had a waffly sound, but certainly looking at the way that one's been developed, the BB, that is a very, very special car. Now, Alpine, when they brought the A110 back in a handful of years ago, I remember seeing the original range of these in the early 1970s. I thought they were exquisite on those little holidays in France, and they're so true to the original shape.
That's the thing. It looks very similar to the original. This is the A110 Tour de Course, which is a limited edition, but it's a car that a lot of people who just really enjoy driving really like. It's simple, it's lightweight, it's all about having low weight, not loads of power, it's just about the experience.
Now, I'm someone that loves a big grungy engine, but I also do the opposite of that, which is this. It's light, it's fun, it's dynamic, and you can have a lot more fun at lower speeds in a car like that.
That's the thing, it's well balanced. The grip levels aren't so high that you can't actually enjoy it on the road. You can just Sunday morning and just enjoy driving without needing to go to a track. Just have fun at very normal speeds.
Exactly. So now, from a shape that is easily identified to one that is a very different game. It has it look like a Jaguar at the back end. What are we looking at?
So this is from the Prodrive Hunter. Essentially, road-going version of a Dakar car. So if you like big wheel articulation and lots of suspension travel, this is the car for you. It's an absolute weapon. Just listen to it.
Oh, that's pretty mighty, and I must say, with that level of suspension travel, I think it'd be very good for the lanes around my house, the pothole lanes around my house down in Dorset, and in fact many other places around the UK where the roads aren't in the best shape at the moment. But that could handle all that, plus the power to go with it.
As well, you can just see the suspension on the car there. Slightly rolled, but it's all so controlled. The dampers on this would be such a high spec.
Yes, I think it's only when you understand the level of engineering that goes into this that you realise just that degree of expertise and the sort of incremental gains. Actually, it's the opposite of an incremental gain as you try and find more and more performance from anything, but particularly something like this. We've got this enormous range of up and down, side to side, plus all that power being put down. Well,
it's fine having your wheels move around a lot if you're dealing with lots of big bumps, but of course you need to be controlled, otherwise you're just going to end up spitting yourself off the road. And this is the new Porsche 911 Sport Classic 992 generation, limited run, ducktail spoiler on the rear. Porsche skipped a generation. The last time we saw a sport classic was with the 997. That was probably nearly 15 years ago now. This is a 992, latest generation of flat 6 turbocharged engine, more than 500 horsepower, and very special. The interior as well is just so delightful. I'm actually struggling with words. Because it looked back to kind of the Porsche interiors from 40, 50 years ago. There's cloth interiors, leather on it, there's checkered patterns, beautiful, and a manual gearbox.
Where do I order one now? I mean, that sounds fantastic. I mean, simple is good. It's, simple things for a simple person. But do, if you're at Goodwood, or not, if you're not this year, come next year. But you have to walk around the paddock, see where these cars are parked, and it is the detail. And I think particularly with people like Porsche, when they go back and take ideas from previous cars, they like to echo back. Bear in mind, the Porsche 911 has been around for a remarkably large number of years in its many evocations, but I always love this looking back in time and just putting a little aside. It might only be, as you say, a bit of seat upholstery, but they're raiding a rich history there.
Porsche's very good at looking back into its history and thinking, right, what would people really appreciate? What haven't we done for a while? What could really surprise people? And when you look at, like I said, look at the interior of that as well, the ducktail spoiler. By skipping a generation, by skipping the 991 generation, it's not like a regular, like we expect a new GT3 and a new GT3 RS and what have you, but we kind of weren't really expecting this. We kind of thought the 997 was a one-off, so for this to appear it's a real treat.
Yeah, and I also think cars that aren't cheap, you save up them through your life, and when you've maybe got to a point where the money is either there or your expenditure's gone down, you want to buy a car, but you now might be 60 years old and you might remember the cars that 40 years ago or 50 years ago when you were a child, and if you can have some of those elements in, that is sort of really super special. There we are. I've talked about my desires for cars, but it is such a personal thing, and just looking at the cars in this Michelin's Supercar run and the first glance, there's so much variety, and so many manufacturers now produce cars of prodigious performance, and they all do it in sort of different ways. I think there are rich pickings, and as we've had that Aventador as the last of its run, we are aware that it's not too long until you won't be able to buy a new fuel engine car in the UK. So the door is closing, but while it's closing, more and more fabulous cars are coming in as the last knockings.
It's a very exciting time to be interested in, well, everything really, internal combustion engines, electric powertrains, because they've all got their benefits, things you can get excited about. EVs, instant torque, lots of power, quite easy, relatively speaking. But then again, you've got these, the last of the breed, these very loud, very exciting cars where the manufacturers are making the most of what they got, the technology they've developed over however many decades, and putting it down the road.
So Genesis, a name that didn't exist that long ago, but now serious business. This car with 672 is its little number. It's the G80E. Therefore, I think we might be able to guess what powers it.
Yes, so this is the electric version of the Genesis G80. Genesis is an interesting brand, really, because, well, let's say you buy one of these. There aren't traditional dealerships. There is an outlet, but you can order online. If you need your car serviced, you don't have to go to a dealership and drop it off. You can say, it needs to be serviced, and someone will come and collect your car. They will give you another Genesis to keep that will be the same spec, if not better. They'll take your car away, do whatever needs to be done, and then bring it back to you. It's customer service, it's a luxury brand, and they're also actually quite good looking.
Yeah, I think they've really hit a rich furrow. It's never an easy thing to come as a whole new brand. People want to suck through their teeth and go, what's it like? I'll wait a few years. But seriously, these concepts don't waste a day when you're having your car serviced. Actually, when they're taking the car to service, can they drop your children at school en route?
I mean, you could certainly ask. I wouldn't see any harm in asking. This is the Toyota GR86. So you might remember the Toyota GT86 that was launched back in 2012 now. 2-litre boxer engine, about 200 horsepower, skinny tyres. This essentially is the car on from that. It's got a bigger engine, 2.4 litre, it's got more horsepower, it's got some slightly more serious tyres as well. But it is still manual gearbox, it's still about the enjoyment of driving. They haven't chased big numbers, they haven't chased big grip. It's just about driving fun.
Well, the GT8, I actually was slightly taken aback when you said it was 10 years ago the GT86 was launched. My, how the years are flying by. But I've also thought they're great cars, and look at this one, it's another step forward. But I suppose the interesting thing, is it more dynamic to drive, or just more luxurious and easier, having more power and more tyre?
I think what Toyota have tried to do is take what they learned with the GT86 and apply it to something with a little bit more horsepower, a little bit more grip, but keep everything balanced again.
Now, Subaru, so popular after their successes on the rally stages. You know, there wasn't a village in Britain without one burbling away around town, but it lives on.
This is the Prodrive P25, so only 25 of these cars. Just, I mean, it's all new carbon construction, but
well, I think it's phenomenal for Prodrive that ran the Subarus in period in the World Rally Championship. I can only say it's a 25 car run. They've got to all be sold already. A new refined version of what went before. When you think of the greats in those cars on the rally stages, Colin McRae in particular, starring around the world, and Petter Solberg as well. But for so many people, of course, it's in that metallic mid-blue. It is what it is. It's great fun. And I think there are going to be a lot of people standing on their tongues when they see this car go past. We've gone yellow, so we've gone back to the world of, what are we looking at?
Another Lotus Emira. So this is the V6. New age for Lotus, really. They've got the Electro SUV coming, they've got the Avaya electric hypercar, and this is the replacement for the Exige, the Elise, the Evora, kind of all mashed into one. V6 engine, manual gearbox.
And I tell you what, it's bright in yellow, but it's even brighter because the sun for the first time today is coming out from behind the clouds. So for Gavin Kershaw, who's been at Lotus man and boy, has developed these cars, racer turned development engineer, a proud moment for him, and particularly in this gorgeous V6 engine.
Just put there's a red one, so they're bringing plenty of flavours of Emira here.
And of course, at the end, we've had the supercar run from Michelin. We've had First Glance. We've just got to the back of that, and that leaves the last of this group, which are the motorbikes, the modern road bikes. And it really was not a mixed bag, but one with lots of power at the back. We've had the Triumph Scrambler as one of those, as one of the bikes. But this, again, bikes doing different things in different shapes, different things. The car companies are sort of raiding their boxes of memories that the motorbike companies are doing, I'd suggest, even more. Not just in terms of old companies coming back, but taking bikes and making them echo the bikes of the 1960s and 70s as well.
And there's still real innovation here as well, just listen to that.
Sitting up high, handlebars spread out wide, comfortable riding position. We've got cruising bikes as well, but any bike just a little rev, pop that front wheel up, it's got to be fun. Some bikes are here for the show as well, just burning out as they come up the hill as the sun now shining properly at Goodwood Festival Speed. Let's hope we can have this for the rest of the weekend.
I was just wondering how much longer he could keep that burnout going. He did it pretty much halfway up in front of the house. That was very, very impressive. Thank you, sir.
And again, it's this great turn of speed. You know, there's nobody that only likes bikes or only likes cars. And a lot of us focus on one or the other, but when you see the other in a moving, dynamic environment, Sean, it's great. And just the different sounds they make again.
Yeah, and if you're here for the cars, let's say you're here for the road cars, we've just seen all the supercars, First Glance cars go up. Go and have a look at the bikes, go and have a look at the rally cars at the top of the hill. There's so much to see and experience, things that perhaps you wouldn't have spent that much time on.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to use your time very judiciously, but to see something from Bruff Superior Motorcycles, yes, those from long, long ago, just going up the hill, the AMG-001 we've seen, not the one on screen, but this is another bike that just makes me smile, just because they're so broad. Why are they so broad? Because they've fitted a socking great engine between the riders' legs. And Jody Millhouse was spoken to, he's riding it, he was spoken to when he reached the top paddock earlier in the day, but he's very, very much enjoying the bike that he built himself. And to get to build something yourself, I mean, that's phenomenal. Something you built yourself that works is even better. And something you can ride in style like the hill climb course at Goodwood. Well, what an exquisite feat for Jody. And I must say, it's very good news indeed that the hill course that was very wet when they went out this morning, this must be a far more pleasurable, relaxing environment for them to display their bikes and their wares.
Yeah, they're able to get the power down a lot more easily now. They can lean into the corners a little bit more. Because it drops away from you as you come out.
It certainly does, but I must say, so far on the first day of 4 at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, people have been behaving very well. tricky conditions turning not quite to perfect conditions. They're certainly getting there. The drift cars are very kindly, in their runs, put a bit of rubber down through the corners, but as someone said, not always in the right place for the bikes. They take a different line around the corner. But just great to see these bikes and to hear their engines. And it is, I wouldn't say it's sublime to ridiculous, but in terms of the shapes of these modern road bikes, they could be pretty much anything you want. The technology is there to make them dynamic, and why not have it tailored to your desires?
And again, for the price of a relatively normal family hatchback or saloon, you can have a motorcycle that do 200 miles an hour, get to 60 in 3 seconds. Not that you did it on the road, obviously, but it's such an insane level of performance. For money that in car terms, you can get some fun cars, but you probably can't get anything that matches it for outright pace.
Right, having just analysed all those bikes going up the hill, I thought the AMB, the Rough Superior model 001 was great, but that Triumph Scrambler, the 1200 Bond limited edition that went up first, popping those wheelies, that's the one that gets my vote.